Welcome back to our deep dive. We've got some really interesting material this time, focusing on Hamawun Kanahawantan, which for those who might not know the Nepali, translates roughly to stage and public addresses.
Right, but it's more than just a translation, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's really about the art of, you know, commanding attention, owning the stage, whether that's a business presentation or maybe a big community event.
Exactly. It's that whole presence, how you connect. And this specific perspective, while it offers some really compelling angles.
It really does. What struck me about the sources you sent over was just how incredibly thorough they are.
Yeah, they don't just skim the surface. They really drill down into specific scenarios.
Like what sort of things?
Well, everything. We're talking, ceremonies like graduations, award handovers, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Then there's Yatri discussions, workshops, lectures,
Yeah.
even henchak exhibitions, performances.
Wow. Okay. So a huge range.
A massive range, and it really highlights how you've got to adapt your approach depending on the context.
Exactly. And that's really our mission here today, isn't it? To dig into these rich sources you've provided and pull out the most useful, actionable bits. We want to get past just the basic advice and really understand the nuances, especially through this specific cultural lens. How to present yourself, how to engage.
Sounds good. And a logical place to start, I think, is right at the beginning. Planning and preparation.
The groundwork.
Exactly. The source material really leans into this practical framework, the 5 Ws and 1 H.
Okay, the classic 5 Ws and 1 H. Let's break that down. So we have when,
When, Yeah.
why, the purpose,
Yeah.
where, the location, who, the organizer,
Well.
what, the program itself, and finally called how, the schedule.
That's it.
It's fundamental stuff, really, like basic journalism almost.
Right. But applying it to planning an event or even just a speech, well, it brings such clarity.
It really forces you to think through all the essential bits from the get-go.
Precisely. It gives you a solid structure. And the source actually provides a great example.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the welcome address for this 7-day public speaking training. It was organized by Chandragiri Municipality.
Okay.
And right there in the description, you see the date, the purpose developing speakers, the location, the organizer, the training itself, and the how, the 7-day schedule.
I see. So it lays it all out clearly using that framework.
Exactly. It shows how these aren't just abstract questions. They are the literal building blocks.
Makes sense. And you can see how skipping even one could lead to, well, confusion later on.
Definitely.
So moving on from that initial planning, the sources then get into the nitty-gritty of structuring different kinds of events, starting with formal programs, Rian Sarkiabin. What are the key parts there?
Okay, so the text breaks it down pretty neatly into 2 sections.
Yeah.
First is the Elegant
The organizer details section.
Right. This is where you lay out all the basics. Image a date, any time, a place.
The essential.
Yeah, the objective, the program overview, who's organizing, maybe sponsors don't have to sue, and even the announcer. So it's about setting the stage, giving everyone the core info up front.
Exactly. Context is key. Then you move into the second part, the economark, niske konshonja.
Program details section. So the actual flow of events.
Precisely. The roadmap for the whole thing. And it follows a very specific order.
Okay. How does it start?
It starts with preparing for attendees. I think registration, maybe handing out materials.
Logistics.
Right. Then comes Kanchan Gate, the seating arrangements. And this is where you really see the cultural aspect come into play.
How so?
There's a clear hierarchy specified. First, the chairperson. Okay.
Then the chief guest, followed by the special guest, then other guests, and the program coordinator,
Wow, that's quite specific. It really prioritizes seniority.
It absolutely does. And understanding that hierarchy isn't just about where people sit, it's about showing respect, cultural sensitivity right from the start. It sets the tone.
That's a great point. Even seating charts carry cultural weight. What comes after seating?
Next up is usually the Pasazan Abdactor Kama, Makastorin Ice Kinter, a mice keep it distribution and receiving Kata garlands.
The Kata garlands. Very symbolic in Nepali culture, right?
Very. It's a traditional gesture of welcome, honor, respect. It's not just decoration, it carries deep meaning.
So the timing and presentation matter.
Definitely. Then comes the Poldernakudumasatian, the welcome speech, followed by the Vadakantimadus Minute, the formal inauguration, often with something symbolic like lighting a lamp.
Okay, so we're moving through the initial formalities, setting that respectful tone. What about the main content?
That comes next. You have the Dasai Lohi, Dasai Halusi Hisat Tamino, a pain of the speeches from the guests.
Right.
Followed by the Yurokuniso Kepakiamakombakom, the chief guest's speech, which is often, a central part of the formal program.
The keynote, essentially.
Kind of, yeah. And then it typically wraps up with the Tilascience of the Labano, Patnat and about that
That's right.
first speech. Batia, the chairperson, gives concluding remarks and then formally adjourns the assembly.
It's a very structured flow. Everyone gets their turn in a specific order.
Very thoughtful, very organized, ensures everyone key is heard.
Even if you're not organizing that exact type of event in that culture, the core ideas, clear roles, structured flow, acknowledging people, those are pretty universal principles for any presentation, really.
Absolutely. They translate well.
Now, the source also talks about cultural programs at that.
Yeah.
How is that structured different?
Well, as you'd expect, it's generally more flexible. The emphasis shifts more towards engagement and entertainment.
Makes sense.
It often still starts with preparing for attendees.
Oh, look, indeed.
But then might kick off with a welcoming performance, like a Jinal Jarata, a welcome dance or song.
To set the mood immediately.
Exactly. Create that vibrant atmosphere. Seating, fighting, and maybe badge distribution follow.
And the core.
The core is the presentations themselves. Music, dance, drama, whatever it might be.
And it just ends with a general conclusion.
Pretty much, a conclusion. The focus is definitely more on creating an enjoyable, memorable experience.
Right. Which leads us neatly into something really interesting. The specific advice for announcers in these cultural programs, de glarlet stelden dibble, what's gold fine who you land? What stood out to you there?
Oh, several really key things. First, the absolute need for the announcer to do their homework. Gather all the info beforehand.
About the performers, the acts.
Everything. Details on performers, acts, any special instructions. Seems basic, but being truly informed lets you introduce things properly, handle hiccups smoothly.
Good point. What else?
Using respectful language that everyone can understand. Avoid jargon. Avoid slang that might exclude people. Keep it universal.
Okay, standard stuff. But then there was this fascinating bit about weaving in things like shiari, poems, ghazals.
Yes, that's such a unique touch, isn't it?
It really is. Very artistic.
It elevates the announcer's role. You're not just saying next up is, you're adding this layer of cultural connection, linking these literary forms to the performances. It deepens the whole experience.
That's brilliant. And very practical, too, the point about managing glitches.
Oh, yeah, crucial. If there's a technical delay or something unexpected happens, the announcer needs to step in. Use humor. The text mentions, hey, I'm gonna limit short free verse jokes.
Keep the audience engaged. Keep control.
Exactly. A bit of well-timed humor can save the day in any live event, really. Diffuses tension.
So true. The little humor goes a long way. What about when there are two announcers? The source mentioned that, too.
Yeah, the key things there are clear division of labor and seamless support for each other.
Work as a team.
Totally.
Yeah.
No awkward overlaps, no stepping on toes, clear roles, back each other up. And another point, seemingly small but important.
What's that?
Announce the names of artists and guests with, special emphasis. Give them proper recognition.
Show respect for their contribution. Makes sense.
It's about appreciation. And the text also reminds announcers to acknowledge sponsors periodically.
Right, gotta thank the sponsors.
It's part of managing the event well, recognizing that support. And finally, wrapping up by thanking everyone, organizers, sponsors, and definitely the audience before saying goodbye.
And on a gracious note, leave a good final impression.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered event structures, the announcer's role. Now the source gets really practical, like hands-on advice.
Yeah.
Starting with using a podium, akiraka. We've all seen awkward podium moments, haven't we?
Haha, definitely. The guidelines here are quite specific. First off, don't lean on it. Don't put your weight on it.
It's not a crutch.
Right. It's an aid. Keep your notes, your diary, whatever, organized on top. Stand centered behind it. Look balanced, professional.
And the microphone on the stand.
Don't grab the mic itself. Adjust the height before you start speaking. If you need stability, lightly hold the edges of the podium.
Don't grip it for dear life or press down.
No, never press down with hands or elbows. looks awkward, might even make noise. It's all about projecting composure, respect for the space.
Good tips. It's about making sure your body language helps, not hinders. Which brings us to microphones. I have a little Quan count that. What are the big do's and don'ts there?
Several important ones. Number 1, universally. Please, please don't go into the mic to test it. Ugh, the worst sound.
It really is. Also, don't put rustling paper right in front of it.
Creates noise.
Exactly. And take a second to figure out the right distance for your voice. It depends on you, depends on the mic. Don't just guess.
How should you hold it?
If it's handheld, hold it lightly in the middle. Don't cover the top. And resist tapping it or fiddling with it to see if it's on. There are usually better ways.
These are such simple things, but they make a huge difference. Avoid those common mishaps.
Absolutely.
Okay, now for the flip side. What should announcers absolutely not do?
How always guess is like a list of things to avoid.
It is, and it's pretty comprehensive, covers a lot of distracting or unprofessional stuff, like looking in only one direction or speaking with your head down.
Got to gauge the whole room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And avoid nervous habits like picking your nose or ears or constantly fiddling with your hair on stage.
Yeah, definitely avoid those. What else?
Speaking with hands stuffed in pockets, or excessive distracting movements swaying, pacing too much. Keep it controlled.
And filler words. I think that was on the list.
Oh, yes. Too many ums and ahs can really hurt your credibility. Makes you sound unprepared.
And getting visibly flustered.
Definitely avoid that. If you look agitated, the audience feels uncomfortable, stay calm. Also, don't ignore parts of the audience, don't repeat yourself endlessly, and don't go off on tangents.
Stay focused.
Right. And absolutely no personal debates or trying to force your opinions on people. You're facilitating, not preaching.
Good distinction. Anything else on the don't list?
Yeah, a few more. Avoid unnecessary foreign language if people might not understand. Stick to your time limit, crucial.
Respect the schedule.
Very important. Don't start with loads of apologies. It weakens your opening. And finally, avoid pointless wandering around the stage. It just looks restless. Maintain a composed presence.
That's a really solid list of pitfalls to steer clear of. Valuable stuff.
Cool.
Okay, finally, the source talks about preparing for speeches and welcome addresses. What are the key prep steps?
Oh, no surprise. Thorough preparation is key. It starts with really studying your topic. Know your stuff inside out.
Research.
Definitely. Then, organize your main points logically. Write the speech out. But here's an interesting twist.
Yeah.
The text advises not taking the full script up with you.
Really? Just notes.
Yeah, carry only the main points, key phrases. Use them as prompts if you need them, like if something unexpected happens or you lose your train of thought.
So the goal isn't rote memorization, but remembering the core ideas.
Exactly. Speak more naturally, connect with the audience, rather than just reading. It feels more authentic that way.
I can see that. What other prep advice?
It circles back to respecting the podium and mic, like we discussed. Always consider your audience. Be super mindful of your time.
Time management again? Crucial.
Always. And maybe the simplest but most effective tip, start your speech with a genuine smile.
Ah, yes. Sets the tone immediately.
It really does. Connects you instantly, creates warmth.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive into the wonder text, this deep dive into Celtical tips, it's really given us this amazing mix of structure, cultural insights, and just super practical tips.
Absolutely. For anyone looking to be more effective on stage, whether it's formal or cultural, there's so much here.
And what really stands out is how deeply embedded it all is in that specific Nepali cultural context.
It really is. It's not just about speaking clearly. It's about showing respect through actions, understanding the social dynamics, even using things like poetry to connect.
Public speaking is cultural expression.
That's a great way to put it. It really highlights how culture shapes communication in ways we might not even notice.
It really does make you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And for you listening, maybe pause for a second. Which of these guidelines really hit home for you, or maybe challenge how you think about public speaking?
Yeah.
Are there any of these maybe culturally specific ideas that you could actually adapt or use even outside of Nepal? It's just a powerful reminder, isn't it?
Yeah.
The desire to communicate is universal.
But the best ways to do it are often really rooted in understanding the culture.
Absolutely.
And look, this exploration, it's really just scratching the surface as you continue trying to become a more confident, impactful speaker wherever you are.
Keep learning.
Exactly. Keep learning, keep observing, keep refining. Think about how these ideas might inform your next talk, how you can connect just that little bit deeper with your audience.